What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Spectator Sports. I'm your host, Sebastian Fonseca, and we are now 6 weeks into the NFL season with so many storylines and news to break down in today's episode. But before we do that, please like and subscribe to the page. It makes a massive difference in the YouTube algorithm. And please follow our Instagram and TikTok pages linked to the bio. And with that, let's jump right into it. The San Francisco 49ers traveled to Atlanta to play the Falcons, and the Falcons picked up an upset win over the 49ers 28-14. Atlanta has really impressed me this year. I think with them starting off 3-3, arguably could have been 4-2. All their games have come within one possession, and they're playing really competitive football and really sticking it to some teams that definitely have a lot more talent. We've seen them play the LA Rams really tough, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, both teams who made the playoffs last year, and both who, yes, they've been having some rough starts to the years themselves, but I want to give the Falcons some credit. They have been bereft of talent to start off this season, but they're really making the most out of the season. The 49ers have been riding a recent wave of tough defense and a strong running game, but on Sunday, the running game was completely shut down. Running back Jeff Wilson, who's been productive in the recent weeks, was shut down completely and even had a fumble in this game. And the defense without Nick Bosa, who's going to be out for a few weeks with a growing injury, was really leaky and let the Falcons offense get loose for a few big plays. We saw Kyle Pitts finally get into the end zone for the first time this season, and fantasy owners can finally rejoice. I mean, he's been struggling this year to really be utilized. I think Arthur Smith has been doing some things differently this season, and I really want to see Kyle Pitts be more of a focal point in the offense. He's been so good at taking advantage of those one-on-one matchups. He's too big for safeties, but way too fast for linebackers to guard him. He's just a matchup nightmare. The Falcons offense really kept things simple on Sunday, really utilizing Marcus Mariota's legs and also getting the ball out to Zacharias and Drake London. If I was a 49ers fan, I would be really disappointed in this game. There was a great opportunity to really build and get ahead of your division rivals, and now you're stuck in a three-way tie with Seattle and LA. Now, thankfully, they do have head-to-head tiebreakers, but when you have opportunities to get ahead of your division rivals and create some distance, you have to take advantage of that. Now, moving on to the upstart New York Jets taking on the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Packers have been coming off a loss in London to the New York Giants, and the Jets have been coming off of a 2-game win streak over the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Miami Dolphins. Now, I'm really impressed with how the Jets have been adjusting, integrating Zach Wilson back into the fold now. He hasn't been having a lot of gaudy stats or a highly potent stat line, but he's providing winning plays when called upon. But the true engine to this offense has been rookie running back Breece Hall. I mean, he had over 100 yards on the ground and a touchdown on the day. And in the first half was a defensive slugfest with both teams settling for field goals, but in the second half, things really got going thanks to Braxton Berrios having a trick play, taking a reverse for the go-ahead score, taking a 10-3 lead, and that lead was further extended thanks to a block punt. Now, we've seen recent issues with Green Bay's special teams. Now, remember back in the playoffs, they had a blocked field goal and a blocked punt resulting in a touchdown, and the same thing kind of happened in this game against the Jets. Now, the Jets' defense really shut down the Packers' offense. They were led by Quinnen Williams, who had 2 sacks on the day, and standout cornerback Sauce Gardner, who was their first-round draft pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. I would say he's already a top 10 corner in the league, and he had a really nice day locking up Allen Lazard and Romeo Doubs. Here we saw Romeo Doubs run this double move route, and Sauce didn't bite on the double move at all, really staying close to Doubs and locking him up. And on this other rep, as Lazard is running across the formation, Sauce is able to make up the ground and get his hand in there for the key deflection. And now with the Jets defense led by Robert Saleh, they really seem to be coming into form and building something for the future. And if they continue to add pieces, they'll be able to have really standout defense in a competitive division led by offense, like with the Miami Dolphins with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and the Buffalo Bills with Gabriel Davis and Stephon Diggs. And if you have a guy like Sauce Gardner who can at least take away maybe one of those receivers, it changes the game plan entirely. And on the Packers side of things, I don't know how to really classify this team. I was really high on them going into the season. I was high especially on their defense, but they've been really lackluster to say the least. And their O-line hasn't been protecting Aaron Rodgers. He has been under duress for most of the season and really been able to struggle to get chemistry with those new receivers. And if this is going to be what's the outlook looking forward, I don't think they're going to be a really good team. They may be able to get into the wild card race, but with the way things are going, they're going to have some tough sledding ahead. The Indianapolis Colts avenged their loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, on week 2, we saw the Jaguars blank the Indianapolis Colts 24-0. And now back in their own house, Indianapolis able to return the favor, rallying for a late touchdown to take a 34-27 victory. And I really was impressed by quarterback Matt Ryan, who had his best game as a Colt this year. He had almost 400 yards passing and 3 touchdown passes, including the go-ahead score. Probably a really efficient outing, and this is kind of what the Colts offense needed to finally wake up, and this is coming at the perfect time with Tennessee right around the corner next week. Transitioning to the New Orleans Saints hosting the Cincinnati Bengals, this is a homecoming game for Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase, where this duo won a national championship with LSU about 3 years ago. And the two really didn't miss a beat, especially in the second half. Ja'Marr Chase came up with 7 catches for 132 yards, 2 scores, and Joe Burrow had 4 total touchdowns, including a rushing touchdown in the first half. And this is kind of what we expected out of the Cincinnati Bengals to start off this year. Now they're being able to rebound to a 3-3 start, and between them and Baltimore, I would lean trusting the Cincinnati Bengals a little bit more. They've been able to fight off adversity in their previous campaign, and I think I trust their defense a little bit more than I do trust the Baltimore defense. The Baltimore Ravens took on the New York Giants in the Ravens' second trip up to MetLife Stadium on the year. I was really impressed with the Giants, who were able to come back from a 10-point deficit and rally for a 24-20 victory. Now, Baltimore, we know this has been a recent trend where they've been giving up double-digit leads and surrendering them in the fourth quarter. They've been one of the worst fourth-quarter teams this year, with Lamar coming up with 5 turnovers in these fourth quarters and only 2 touchdowns. With the Giants cutting the deficit to just 3 points, the Ravens needed one good drive to seal this game. And on 3rd and 1, they converted that, but it was called back due to penalty on illegal formation. And this kind of set off a really bad set of events that really doomed the Ravens on Sunday. Now, facing the 3rd and 6, the Ravens had a bad snap with Lamar fielding the ball, trying to make something out of nothing, throwing off his back foot into double coverage, which was intercepted and taken inside the 15-yard line. And now with the Giants set up in prime position to either tie or take the lead, they face a 3rd down, and Marcus Peters committed a really bad DPI in the end zone, setting up a 1st and goal fresh out of downs inside the 1-yard line, and Saquon Barkley was able to do the rest, take a 24-20 lead late in the fourth quarter. After that, the Ravens offense got back on the field, needing a touchdown to win this game, and Lamar came up short again, coming up with a fumble and thus ending the game with a really nice play thanks to first-round draft pick Kayvon Thibodeau. With that exception to that one loss to the Dallas Cowboys, they've been really impressive, and I've been seeing that Coach Brian Daboll is making the most out of this offense that has been bereft of receiver talent, to say the least, with their injuries and lack of use of the outside weapons. And Daniel Jones has been a solid game manager, not really been asked to do a lot, but when given the task, he's been smart with the ball. And Saquon Barkley has been their star. I mean, he's been their entire offense, taking snaps out of the Wildcat formation and even doing things with his receiving ability as well. And he made a really nice heads-up play with taking a 1st down, and instead of scoring a touchdown, and was able to milk the clock and seal the victory there. On the Ravens side of things, now we know that this has been a troubling trend of them blowing double-digit leads. They've been the worst fourth-quarter team in this season, and Lamar himself has been kind of forcing the issue. Now, I don't know if this has to do with his contract situation. I just think that he's been pressing too much and really overanalyzing the plays. You can see that he's been getting frustrated and really trying to be a little bit too hard on himself. I think he should just let the game come to him. He's really talented and been historically smart with the football. In his first 2-3 years, he's been having single-digit interception seasons, and last year was an exception, really having nothing to really work with. But this year, he has to make some better decisions holding onto that football. And with that, they kind of opened the door for the Cincinnati Bengals to get back into this AFC North race. The Tampa Bay Bucs played the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this was another game where the Bucs offense really struggled to get things going, having to settle for field goals instead of scoring touchdowns. And Tom Brady continued to show his frustration, really getting the face of his offensive line in a heated exchange caught on camera. And this is adding into the laundry list of tirades that we've seen with Tom Brady this season. We saw him smash a service pro, get into the face of teammates and coaches. I know it's been a lot of things off the field as well with his personal life, but even this week he kind of had some issues with being distracted. On Friday, he attended the wedding of his former boss, Robert Kraft, and didn't fly with the team over to Pittsburgh. He flew himself and missed a couple walkthroughs and team meetings on Saturday, and that's some issues there. I mean, there are, of course, exceptions to everything, but even current coach Bill Belichick didn't even attend Robert Kraft's wedding, and I don't think there's any disrespect there. I think in terms of football, that is the top highest priority right now, and it definitely seems like Tom is focusing, or at least being distracted by other things than football this year. And this is still having impacts into the game where he's having issues with teammates and getting in the face, but if I'm his teammates, I mean, they're all professionals. They've all made it to the NFL, and they're doing the best that they can. Some of them are backup O-linemen as well, and they're learning the offensive scheme. And if I'm them, I'm going to really be asking Tom, who the hell is he? I know he's won 7 Super Bowl championships. He's one of the greatest players of all time. But still, that doesn't mean any business of yelling at your teammates. And when you're not even there, I mean, he missed half of training camp. He missed, like I said, a walkthrough meeting and didn't fly with the team in this recent game. That really poses some really interesting questions to ask in a rebuttal, probably. And this is leading to still some issues with the Tampa Bay offense. We're seeing them really struggle this year. But going back into more details of the game, we did see that Kenny Pickett had to lead the game with a concussion, leaving the door open for Mitch Trubisky to get some good reps in. And he had a really good game. He was accurate with the ball, really decisive in making his decisions, and provided a spark that the Pittsburgh Steelers really needed on offense. And this led to their victory. He had some key third down conversions using his legs and getting the ball out to Chase Claypool. And this really sealed the deal for the Pittsburgh Steelers, picking up their second win on the year. I think a Mike Tomlin team is a really tough out regardless of who's really there on the field. He always trains and gets his troops ready for battle. And they're a really prideful organization as well. They're going to be competitive and they're going to battle, but I don't see them winning a lot of games this year. Now, in a rematch of one of the most epic playoff games in recent NFL history, the Buffalo Bills traveled to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. This has been a recent rivalry between two young quarterbacks who have been generational talents in Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. I've been really impressed with how both quarterbacks have started off this season. And to start, it was kind of a slugfest. Both opening drives ended in red zone turnovers. We saw Patrick Mahomes throw a big interception in the red zone that negated any sort of points on that drive. Not a really good throw. But even so, I felt like this game really brings out a lot of aggressiveness out of both teams. Now we saw, especially on the Bills side, that they went for it on 4th down in plus side territory and even in the red zone. With the Bills trailing 7-3, they had the ball at the 3-yard line, and on 4th down, they ran a play to Isaiah McKenzie, who slipped, and the pass ended up being incomplete. I do like this play call. It was just probably bad execution. And when you're playing Patrick Mahomes on the opposite side of the field, you really have to take advantage of these opportunities in the red zone and go for as many points as possible. Towards the end of the first half, Gabriel Davis really got going. He's had the Chiefs number in recent games and continued that success on Sunday, where he had gains of 18 yards and then a 31-yard touchdown reception toward the end of the first half. Now this left 12 seconds on the clock, and I think with any other offense, they would probably just take a knee and go down to half 7-10. But with a Patrick Mahomes-led offense, they were able to do the same type of thing that they did in the fourth quarter in that divisional game and get a last-second field goal thanks to Harrison Butker booting a 62-yard kick to go into halftime tied 10 apiece. In the fourth quarter, we saw that both teams were making adjustments and really amping things up defensively. The Bills were able to get a key red zone stop and forcing the Chiefs to settle for 3. And the Chiefs defense was able to stop the Bills in really key situations. They stopped them on 4th down in plus side territory. And Chris Jones came up with a sack of Josh Allen, and it was probably some controversy. He looked like he had his leg out, probably a tripping penalty. Refs didn't call it, but the refs have been pretty suspect this year. Now the Chiefs got the ball back after this Chris Jones sack, and they had a chance to milk the clock and end this game. But Von Miller had other ideas, coming up with a really nice 3rd down sack, and he had 2 sacks on the day, and he's continued to be a really good veteran leader in this Bills defense and coming up with big play after big play when the Bills need it. Josh Allen took advantage of this opportunity, coming up with big gains after big gains, including a nice hurdle in the red zone to set up a 1st down inside the 15-yard line. And then he found Dawson Knox for what ended up being the game-winning touchdown. And it still left plenty of time for the Chiefs to get the ball and score the go-ahead touchdown. But again, the Bills defense was able to come up strong with a good interception to end the game thanks to Tyron Johnson. I was pretty disappointed in how Patrick Mahomes handled this last-second drive where he was trying to force-feed the ball to Sky Moore. And I don't think that was probably the best way to do it, especially with him being double covered. And that game ended there. And overall, he was sloppy for sure. He had that red zone turnover. Made some really good plays. I mean, he was really establishing Juju Smith-Schuster, and Travis Kelce had a really nice day too. But it's still 6 weeks in, so very early in this season, and there's plenty of time to work out these kinks before the playoffs. And now my outlook on the Bills, they have the inside track to getting home field advantage in that crucial number 1 seed, and they have that tiebreaker over the Chiefs when it comes to a head-to-head tiebreaker. And overall, I think the Bills have the softer division. They seem to have an edge over Miami and the New York Jets, even though Miami beat them head-to-head. The next time that they play Miami, they'll be in Buffalo, and I think that they'll be able to win that matchup and really own the AFC East moving forward. And them being a 1-loss team in such a competitive conference now, other teams are 4-2, and there's a bunch of 3-3 teams, but them having this home field advantage really sets things up for a deep playoff run. On Sunday night, the Dallas Cowboys took on the Philadelphia Eagles in a crucial matchup in the NFC East. Dallas has been riding a recent wave of strong defense led by Micah Parsons, and they're coming off a really resounding victory over the defending champs with a bunch of sacks and crucial turnovers, and they pose a big threat to Philly, who had issues with the offensive line as of late with injuries. And early on, the game started off pretty slow with both teams being scoreless after 1. But again, the second quarter proved to be decisive, as the Eagles have been the best team in terms of scoring output in the second quarter, coming up with 20 points to take an early 20-0 lead. And now Jalen Hurts was able to lead the offense to take a couple touchdowns, taking an early 14-0 lead. And they really exploited Micah Parsons, being able to put him into situations where he's not totally comfortable in terms of coverage and really running at him. I got to give some credit to Lane Johnson. In the first half, he was a stone wall against Micah. He really neutralized him, and he left the game with a concussion, and that's when things kind of changed in that third quarter where the Dallas offense was able to get going. The Eagles defense has been leaky against the run. We've seen DeAndre Swift gash him for a couple big gains. And Zeke was able to get going with a few big gains, including a rushing touchdown in the third quarter, and got Dallas back into the game, cutting the lead to 20-10. And in the fourth quarter, Dallas was really able to make this a game, cutting the deficit to just 3 points. But when Philly got the ball back, they were able to come up with a really nice drive featuring a lot of runs and changing up the play calling, something they haven't really done in the second half. And they milked a lot of time off the clock and came up with a touchdown to Devontae Smith to get a more cushion heading into the final frame of the fourth quarter. On the ensuing drive, Cooper Rush threw a big interception to Gardner Johnson, his second of the day, and he missed some time in that third quarter, and he was able to come back facing a hand injury. I was really appreciative of that, where he was able to gut it out and come up with that big interception to milk some more time off the clock and preserve the Eagles' victory. Overall, this wasn't the more resounding victory against Dallas that I really expected. They got up early against them, but that third quarter left the door open for Dallas to really make this a game. But when push comes to shove, the Eagles have made adjustments and come up with the big plays when necessary. We see them trail 14-0 against Jacksonville. And after the Arizona Cardinals were able to tie up the game, they had a nice long drive last week to really get that game back in control. So through 6 weeks, the Eagles have been able to prove that they can win in a variety of different ways, whether it's coming back after an early deficit or really running it down your throat with the run game, or passing it through the deep ball, or more underneath routes. They just have so many different ways that they can beat you, and I was really impressed with a true team performance with the secondary really getting after it as well. And now heading into the bye week at 6-0, this is a really good place to get healthy and make a run and really take control of the NFC and hopefully get that number 1 seed. On Monday Night Football, the struggling Denver Broncos were playing the LA Chargers, and the last time we saw Denver, they had a really pitiful performance, coming up with just 9 points, and Russell Wilson was really off in that game, coming up with a couple big interceptions and was off target. In the first quarter, he was spot on. He was perfect with 10 for 10 and had a touchdown pass as well, taking an early 10-0 lead. But after that, it was just the same type of Russell Wilson that we've been seeing. He only completed 3 more passes between the second quarter and overtime. He was just 3 out of 11 and for 15 yards. And that's nothing quite the production you expect out of a guy like Russell Wilson. And he's been continuing to be disappointing in this early frame of the season. And the Chargers will be getting back Joey Bosa in the near future. And if they can put all these pieces together, they'll still be a very dangerous team that we expected coming into the season. Justin Herbert wasn't the best on Monday night, but he's been able to get it out despite that early season rib cage injury. The Chargers were still able to overcome adversity. Now, kicker Destin Hopkins came into the game with a quad injury and kind of re-aggravated that during an extra point attempt. He still made all his kicks, and one was also the game winner as well. And I don't know what his status is moving forward, but really gritty performance by him. Justin Herbert didn't have the best of games. He set a record for most pass attempts without a touchdown pass in a game. He also had an interception as well, but overall, the Chargers were able to come out with the victory and move on to 4-2, keeping pace with the Kansas City Chiefs. And they're going to be getting guys back. Keenan Allen should be coming back from the hamstring injury, and Joey Bosa as well, but should be coming back in the near future. And if they can put all these pieces together, they'll be that really interesting team that we expected to win this division. Now, my offensive players of the week, I'm going to be naming Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, the LSU alumni who came back to NOLA and came up with a really nice performance. They both combined on touchdowns as well, and if they can really put these pieces together and resume that play that they had in 2021, they'll be a really dangerous team moving forward. On the defensive side of things, I'm going to be naming Gardner Johnson, who left the game midway with a hand injury but came up with 2 interceptions and 2 pass deflections. And overall, the entire secondary unit of the Philadelphia Eagles have been really impressive. I think Darius Slay leading the way kind of masks a lot of the other players, but James Bradbury has been amazing, and the entire secondary, like I said, as a whole has been really productive. In this game alone on Sunday night, they came up with 9 pass deflections in the secondary and 3 total interceptions. And if they continue this, I think this is going to be the most talented secondary that we've seen in Philadelphia for a long time. Teams trending up, obviously the Eagles being undefeated heading into the bye week at 6-0. I think that they're the best team in the league on both sides of the ball. They can beat you in so many different ways. The Atlanta Falcons picking up another win, moving up to 3-3, tied with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I've been really impressed with what they've been able to do given their talent limitations. The Indianapolis Colts are also trending in the upward direction, coming up with a couple big victories and really rounding into shape against their matchup against Tennessee next week. And also trending upwards, I have the New York Giants, who've been having a couple nice weeks, picking up wins against the Packers and the Baltimore Ravens. And their defense has been really good. They've been coming up with turnovers, and their pass rush is really getting home, bothering the opposing offenses. And they're finding ways to win despite offensive limitations, especially with a decimated wide receiving room. Teams trending downwards, I'm going to have the Denver Broncos to start off. Russell Wilson has been off in this first 6 weeks of the season, not really being on the same page. Also the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who their offense has been in flux and really been a chaotic mess as of recent weeks. And their defense is disappointed as well, giving up some big gains to Mitchell Trubisky, really seeing that game. Also the Packers, another team that has a talented quarterback, but their offense and defense are disappointing and really lacking talent in their receiving room. And finally, Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, they've started off the season 2-1, but this recent trend of them losing 3 games has kind of had them falling back down to earth. And that's it for this episode of Spectator Sports. We had a recent special NBA preview edition, and that's in the channel. Link is in the bio, so give that a watch for all my NBA fans. And until next time, I'll see you then.